Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at something that, well, if you have stepped foot in a nightclub, a warehouse party, or a summer festival in the last 15 years, you have absolutely heard it.
Oh, for sure.
You might not have known the specific name for it. You might have just thought of it as, I don't know, dance music or that beat that goes on forever. But you have felt it.
Absolutely. It's essentially the background radiation of modern club culture. It really is the default setting.
We are talking about tech house. Now, I have to be honest with you. When I started reading through the stack of source material for this one, I had a bit of a preconceived notion.
Okay.
I've always thought of tech house as the safe option. You know, not as intense as techno, but not as catchy as commercial house. Just kind of
a neutral middle ground.
exactly. But the sources we had today paint a very different, much more intentional picture. They describe it as a deliberate, almost engineered solution to a specific problem on the dance floor.
It is engineered. That is the perfect word for it. And your initial reaction, that it feels safe, is actually by design. It's a feature, not a bug. The source material defines the genre with this fascinating paradox that I think really frames our whole conversation. It is softer than techno, but harder than house.
Which sounds simple on the surface, but our mission today is to figure out why that specific combination went from this tiny, gritty niche in London pirate radio in the mid-90s to, well, to essentially conquering the world.
Yeah.
How did a genre that tries to be in the middle become the main event?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at it not just as a musical style, but as a bridge. The research highlights that tech house wasn't just some happy accident where a DJ played the wrong record.
Okay.
It was a conscious decision to reinvent the concept of groove. The core idea is that it maintains the temperature, the funkiness, the sexiness of house music, but it forces it into the rigid, cold, mechanical structure of techno.
Okay, hold on. Temperature versus structure. Let's unpack that because that sounds like a key insight.
It is.
When we say it keeps the temperature of house, we're talking about the vibe, right? The humanity of it.
That we're talking about the swing, the soul.
Yeah.
I mean, house music coming from the Black queer communities of Chicago and New York has this deeply human element. It's warm, it breathes.
Yeah.
But techno, especially the Detroit and later European stuff, is often cold, industrial, futuristic, almost dystopian. Tech house is the engineering feat of taking that warm human funk and putting it on a grid.
So you're stripping away the excess emotion of house and just delivering it through the ruthless efficiency of techno.
That's it.
It's a cyborg. It's got a human heart, but a robot body.
That is a fantastic analogy, yes.
Yeah.
And to understand how that works physically, like what it actually does to your ears and your body, we need to look at what the sources call the aesthetics of subtraction.
I really stuck on this section of the notes, the aesthetics of subtraction. It implies that this genre is defined by what isn't there rather than what is. It sounds very minimalist, you know, very less is more.
It is exactly that. If you listen to a pop song or big room EDM, the production is additive. You're constantly adding layers, synths, vocals, risers, crashes to fill every single frequency.
Right.
Tech house does the opposite. It carves things out. Let's look at the kick drum, for instance. In big techno, you have what's often called a rumble. The kick is massive. It has this long tail that eats up the entire low end.
Right, that booming sound that feels like it takes up all the air in the room.
Exactly. But in tech house, the sources describe the kick as having a narrow range. It's a tight, dry 4/4 thud. It punches you, but then it immediately gets out of the way. It's very disciplined.
And why is that important? Why do we want the kick drum to get out of the way?
To make room for the bass. This is the technical secret sauce.
Okay.
In early house music, bass lines were often really melodic. They'd wander around, they had personality. In tech house, the bass is described as tight and locked into the mid-low range. And because the kick is so short and dry, the bass line can create this rolling, hypnotic rhythm that sits right in the pocket.
It's not that big sub bass that vibrates the floorboards.
No, it's not that dubstep sub that rattles your chest. It's a groove bass that hits you more in the hips.
So the kick and the bass aren't fighting for space. They're interlocked. One hits, and the other rolls.
Precisely. And then you look at the top end, the percussion. The notes use the word dry a lot here.
Dry usually means no reverb, right? No echo.
Very little reverb. Short, snappy sounds. Think of a hi-hat that sounds like a distinct tusk rather than a splashy wash of noise. This creates a very crisp, articulate soundscape. It feels precise.
Okay, and then there's the most controversial part of the subtraction. Vocals.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah, because when I think of classic house, I think of big divas wailing, choirs, verses, and choruses.
Right. House music is often built around a song structure. Tech house treats the vocal as just another texture. It's often chopped up, fragmented, and looped.
Right.
You might hear a single phrase, maybe just the word work or move, repeated rhythmically for 4 minutes. The goal isn't storytelling. You aren't supposed to be following a narrative.
The goal is the trance.
The goal is what the source calls a sustainable groove. If a vocal demands your attention because it's telling a story, you have to listen actively. If it's just a texture, a rhythmic element, you can get lost in it. You can inhabit the groove.
That brings up another analogy I was thinking of. If a pop song is like a decorated Victorian house, lots of furniture, paintings, floral wallpaper, tech house feels like modern minimalist architecture. Concrete and glass. It's functional.
That's a great way to put it. It's utilitarian.
Why?
And it's designed specifically for a DJ to build a long set. You can't mix 2 Victorian houses together. It would be a chaotic mess.
Oh, right.
But you can slide 2 pieces of minimalist architecture together seamlessly to build a larger structure.
So we have the blueprint. Narrow kick, rolling bass, dry percussion, fragmented vocals. But this blueprint didn't just appear out of thin air. We need to go back to the construction site.
The London Crucible.
We're traveling to the early 1990s, specifically to the UK. Paint the picture for us. It was, 1992, 1993? What is happening in London nightlife?
It's chaos, but it's a beautiful transitional chaos. You've just had the explosion of acid house and the illegal rave scene.
Right.
That energy is starting to move back into clubs. You've got UK Techno developing, which was getting really hard and fast. Guys like Surgeon and Regis, very industrial.
Okay.
And on the other side, you still have the soulful US house imports coming over from Chicago and New York.
So you have the hard and the soft coexisting, but they're very separate worlds.
Totally separate. And the clubgoers were evolving. This is a crucial social point the sources make. The initial summer of love rave energy was settling down. People didn't necessarily want to get battered by industrial noise at 140 BPM for 6 hours straight.
Right.
But they also found vocal house a bit too, maybe cheesy, or just too daytime for a dark, sweaty 3 a.m. vibe.
They wanted something that could keep them going all night. A marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. They needed a bridge. They wanted the driving nature of techno, but the sexy groove of house. And specific venues started to cater to this. The notes highlight a club called The End in London as the absolute epicenter.
The End is legendary. And you can't talk about The End without talking about Mr. C.
Mr. C is a pivotal figure here. Now, most people might know him as the front man for the Shaman, Ebenezer Good.
Of course.
But in the underground, he was a serious DJ and the co-founder of The End. And he was pushing this sound that didn't really have a name yet. It was about taking that relentless energy of techno, but slowing it down just enough to let the funk back in.
And it wasn't just him. The sources mentioned the Wiggle crew. Terry Francis and Nathan Coles.
Yes.
Wiggle is such a great name for this sound, by the way. It implies exactly what the music makes you do.
It perfectly describes those bass lines. Terry Francis, who later became a longtime resident at Fabric, was mixing these styles in a way that felt completely new. They were taking house records but playing the dub mixes.
The B-sides.
Right, the versions without the vocals, and then they would pitch them down or up to match the techno tracks. Along with Eddie Richards and his Swag Records label, they were basically creating the tech house template through pure experimentation.
Stripping the house tracks naked to make them fit.
That's it. It's fascinating that it started as a solution to a logistical problem. How do we keep people dancing for 8 hours without burning them out or boring them? It was functional evolution.
So we had this London sound solidifying in the late 90s. It's groovy, a bit rough around the edges, very UK. But then the story moves. It crosses the English Channel. In the early 2000s, tech house meets Germany.
And this is the collision that really refined the genre. By the early 2000s, Berlin was establishing itself as the global capital of techno. But specifically, a style called minimal techno was rising.
This is where things get even drier, right? If London was the funk, Berlin was the precision engineering.
That's a fair assessment. The German influence introduced these incredibly precise microscopic rhythm arrangements. We call them micro-rhythms. Instead of a big swing, you have these tiny, glitchy clicks and cuts placed with mathematical precision.
Wow.
And when the London groove met the Berlin engineering, the genre matured, it became sleeker.
We see some massive labels popping up here in the source list. Poker Flat, Cocoon, Minus.
These are the giants. You have artists like Steve Bugg, who runs Poker Flat. He's often cited as the perfect bridge between that deep house funk and the new minimal precision. Then you have Bukashade, M-A-N-D-Y, and of course the enigmatic figure of Ricardo Villalobos.
Villalobos is interesting because he seems to exist at the intersection of everything. The notes mentioned him as being technically minimal, but spiritually something else entirely.
He's a category of his own, really, but he influenced tech house so heavily. He uses that South American percussion influence. He's Chilean German, and he stretches tracks out to 12, 15 minutes long. He showed that you could take this minimal sound and make it incredibly hypnotic and warm.
He brought looseness to the German rigidity.
Yes, exactly. And we can't forget the delivery mechanism for all this. This is before Spotify. If you wanted to hear the sound, you had to buy the mix CD.
Specifically the ones in the metal tins.
The Fabric and Fabric Live series.
I remember buying these. They were like sacred texts. You'd put one on, and it was just one long track index.
They were crucial because you couldn't just stream a 2-hour set back then. These CDs captured the art of the long mix. They showcased how all these genres could be woven together. They taught a generation of listeners, people who couldn't get into a Berlin basement, how to listen to this music.
It wasn't about the individual track. It was about the flow.
Exactly.
So thanks to Fabric and the German connection, the sound spreads globally. And now we move into the 2010s. And this is where the scale just changes dramatically.
Yeah, we go from dark basements to massive open-air stages, the mainstream explosion.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the 2010s is when tech house became the standard format for club music globally. And the engine room for this wasn't London or Berlin anymore. It was Ibiza.
The White Isle.
Ibiza has always been influential, but in the 2010s, the super clubs there needed a sound that worked for 5,000 people on a terrace. Minimal was too heady. EDM was too aggressive for the cool crowd. Tech house was perfect.
It had the kick to move a big system, but the groove to fit the sunny party vibe.
Precisely. And a new generation of stars emerged to service this. We're talking about Jamie Jones.
Right, Jamie Jones is the poster child for this era.
His label, Hot Creations, along with Lee Foss, they changed the palette. The sound got warmer, bouncier, more accessible. It was less glitchy Berlin and more Sunset Terrace. It introduced that heavy, distinctive bassline sound that everyone started copying.
But then, later in the decade, the pendulum swings again. And the sources point this out as a bit of a controversial turning point. The rise of what they call festival tech house.
Yes, this is where the purists start to get upset. In the late 2010s, as the genre got bigger, the sound became much poppier, the tracks got shorter, the hooks got catchier, and crucially, we saw the return of the drop.
Which is so ironic because the whole point of early tech house was to avoid the big cheesy drop.
Exactly. The genre kind of ate itself in a way, but then you have a track like Losing It by Fisher.
You couldn't escape that track for about 2 years. It was everywhere.
That track is the prime example of this shift. It has the tech house structure, the drums, the tempo, but it relies on a massive, almost EDM-style buildup and a huge, distorted horn sound at the drop. It's tech house designed for the main stage at Coachella.
Not a darkroom in Berlin.
Exactly. It's designed for short attention spans.
It's interesting how the genre stretches. On one hand, you have this super minimal intellectual side, and on the other, you have this party-starting, almost frat house version.
It's a huge spectrum, and bridging those gaps, you have figures like Green Velvet and Claude Von Stroke mentioned in our notes.
Oh, I love the Dirty Bird sound. Claude Von Stroke and that whole crew. That feels different again, doesn't it?
It does, and that brings us to the regional flavors. The source material makes a really important point. Tech house is not a monolith. It sounds different depending on where you are.
Okay, let's break that down. We've established the UK sound and the German sound. But what defines that US West Coast Dirty Bird sound?
It's funkier, quirkier, and honestly, it's funnier. It doesn't take itself too seriously. The bass lines are fat and bouncy, often influenced by West Coast hip-hop, and the samples are often weird or humorous. It's music for a barbecue that turns into a rave.
It has a sense of humor, which contrasts with the US East Coast.
The East Coast New York, Detroit is much more rooted in history. It holds on to that traditional soulful house connection. It's a bit more serious, a bit more spiritual. It remembers where it came from.
And then there's South America. The source notes highlight this as a massive, maybe underappreciated engine for the genre.
Huge. Brazil, Argentina, Chile. The characteristic there is the low end. Strong sub-bass and sharp cutting rhythms. The crowds in South America are known for their incredibly high energy, and the tech house that evolved there is driving and percussive to match that.
It's more aggressive than the Ibiza sound.
For sure. It really shows that even though we call it all tech house, you can usually tell where a track is from just by the texture of the bass or the swing of the drums.
It adapts to the local culture. It's a universal language with regional dialects.
That's a great way to put it.
So we've covered the history, the geography, the mechanics, but I want to circle back to the big why. Why has this genre become the dominant one? The expert notes call it the philosophy of the DJ tool.
This is the key takeaway for anyone trying to understand the club world. Tech house is fundamentally a DJ's genre. Some music is made for headphones. Tech house is made to be mixed. It is utility music.
Utility music. That sounds almost derogatory, like elevator music.
But in a club context, it's the highest compliment. Its functionality is its superpower. The source mentions the concept of temperature management.
I love that term. What does that mean in practice?
Well, think about a DJ playing a 3-hour set, or longer. If you play peak time, hands-in-the-air anthems with screaming vocals for 3 hours, you will exhaust the room.
Right.
The crowd will actually stop dancing because they can't maintain that energy level. But you can't play ambient music either. Tech house is the simmer. It allows you to warm up the room, hold the energy, push it to a peak, and then bring it down for the after hours. It's the glue.
It connects the dots. It's the highway that gets you from one destination to another.
And it creates social space. This is the aesthetics of subtraction coming back. By leaving space in the track, by not having a vocal over every second, it creates margin in the club environment. It allows you to zone out, maybe say something to your friend, look around, get lost in the groove.
It's democratic in that way. It doesn't demand you stare at the DJ booth like it's a rock concert.
Exactly. It respects the social ritual of clubbing, which is about more than just the music. It's about being in the room with other people.
So what does this all mean for us right now in the 2020s? We've gone from Mr. C at the end to Fisher at Tomorrowland. Where is tech house today?
The current landscape is a melting pot of everything we've discussed. You have a massive commercial scene where pop tech house is dominating the charts. It works on TikTok because it's catchy.
Okay.
But simultaneously, there is a strong reaction against that, a revival of the deeper underground minimal style.
History repeating itself. The underground reacts to the mainstream.
Always. People are rediscovering that early 2000s sound, the wobbly UK sound and the clicky German sound. They want that subtlety back. They are tired of the big drops, so they are going back to the groove.
Really, the genre has proved its durability. It's not a flash in the pan like dubstep or electro clash, which burned out pretty quickly.
Not at all. And that leads to the final, perhaps provocative thought I want to leave you with.
Let's hear it.
We live in an attention economy. TikTok 15-second clips, constant dopamine hits. You would think that a genre based on subtraction, repetition, and patience would die in this environment. But tech house remains dominant. Why? Perhaps it's precisely because it is a blank canvas. Because it lacks a rigid, overpowering identity, it allows each generation to project what they want onto it. It's functional. It survives because it adapts. It's the infrastructure of the party, not the decoration.
It's the chameleon. It changes colors, but the lizard stays the same.
That's it. It's whatever you need it to be to keep the dance floor moving.
Well, next time you are out, or even just listening to a mix, try to listen for that space between the beats. Don't listen to the loud parts, listen to the subtraction. You might appreciate the architecture a little more. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.